So starting point here, officials told you that Philip Morris would be the biggest winner from the tax cuts for these heated tobacco products, and they also said that they would be toxic and more harmful than vaping. You have come back at that and said that you have independent advice that you've listened to. Can you say who that independent advice is from?
Yeah, and we've just covered that, so that'll be released. It's just there's been studies done, and there was advice from ASH. There was a range of pieces, and plus we know what's happened in Japan regarding heated tobacco. I think the important point there is that at no point did we say heated tobacco was safe. What we were saying was less harmful than smoking, and health confirmed that it's less harmful than smoking. So what we're talking about is harm reduction products to send people on a pathway to quit smoking. And that was where the dialogue came from. So yes, health officials, as they do, they have to present all the information that's relevant. But what we knew was that heated tobacco, as an alternative to smoking, was less harmful than smoking, considerably less harmful. But we definitely weren't saying it was safe or it was take that up instead of smoking.
So to clarify, is it multiple bits of independent advice you received, and what sort of groups and people are we talking about here?
Yeah, so there's a study, and I'm thinking back to, so this will all be released. It's not an issue. There is information, plus what we've learnt from other countries who have alternates. So, as I said, with Japan, they saw significant, because they don't have vaping, so they saw a significant decrease in smoking using alternate tobacco products. So those are the pathways. So I think the perspective we're trying to get on is that we had a different approach to achieving smoke-free 2025. We are trying to do a process by consent rather than coercion, and presenting alternate products as an alternative, because we knew vaping wasn't working for everyone.
So when do you plan to release that advice?
I think it's coming out today. I'm not sure. And I hadn't even realised until this point that this was an issue, until the article that came out today, that this was an issue about where was this advice, because there was a huge range of advice received through this process as to what we need to do to move forward.
Okay, so you don't believe that you've been reluctant in releasing that advice then?
No.
And is there any particular reason why Cabinet didn't see that advice? Because certainly the Prime Minister has said that he hasn't had eyes on it.
Well, it wasn't part of the Cabinet paper. I mean, the Cabinet papers are, 10 to 12 pages long. It's not usual to attach evidence to a Cabinet paper. I presented information in the Cabinet paper, and that was where it came from.
Because the Prime Minister has gone into bat for you and has, given assurances. Are you confident that he's not going to regret that, and given he hasn't cited that advice is all legitimate?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the perspective that we have to get, this is about one of the tools in the arsenal, and there's a range of things we're looking at doing to deliver it. There's legislation before the House now. There's a range of things we're looking at to achieve the smoke-free 2025 target. And this was one of the tools. It's not, it was one of the options presented to help provide people with an option to help them quit smoking. And this is, and I think the other part that's important is the perspective. We were talking about the non-smoking, tobacco-related products. We're talking about in 2023, it was $5.9 million worth of excise collected off all of the products, of which heated tobacco is one of those products. So we're not talking about a massive market. This was just about these products already exist in the market. Could we perhaps make it slightly more attractive than a packet of cigarettes, and therefore look at whether that was successful in getting people to stop smoking for those that vaping hasn't worked for.
Because I guess, do you appreciate that given the advice hasn't been public, some people would jump to the perception that perhaps it had come from the tobacco industry, for example?
Yeah. And as I've said, I wasn't even aware this was an issue, that this is not something that I, it wasn't, in terms of where this advice came from, it was the first time, because the heated tobacco discussion has just come up again because of Philip Morris announcing that they were withdrawing from the market.
So there's going to be a 12-month trial on the heated tobacco products. How is that trial going to work, and I guess what is the threshold for it either working or not working, and how you make a decision about whether to continue with it.
Yeah, so there's two parts of it. One is actually, how much is being sold, which we know from the excise collection. So we've categorised it differently within customs so that we can see heated tobacco standalone in terms of what's coming into the country. And the other thing is around the measures of, the quit rates in terms of what's being, and I think the paper talked about potentially sort of said that there could be about 7,000 people quit smoking. We need 80,000 people to quit smoking, so it's a tiny portion of the numbers that we need to quit. But 7,000 is better than nothing, so if we can get people to quit, then that's an important part.
Because will that information also give you a breakdown that it is people who are using heated tobacco products in place of smoking and not people taking it up?
Yeah, and that was the part that we're really focused on, is around how the data we're collecting. So the health survey stuff becomes really important around what we're doing. And I just, that this is again one of the tools in the arsenal. This is just one of the options we're looking at to try and present options. And when I met with the quit smoking providers, they were talking about the number of people who had tried multiple times, some more than 20, to quit, and it hadn't been successful. So they were also talking about what alternate products could be made available. At the moment, heated tobacco is already available in New Zealand, so that's why we looked at heated tobacco, because it's already in the market.
And then in terms of that 12-month trial, when does that even begin? Because now we have the issue of Philip Morris's product not even being part of the regulations that exist, right?
And those are things that I couldn't have known. Like, it was just not, what we knew was we had a product in the market. Now that has changed, but we've seen within...
But you must have known something, right? Because you asked for a 2-year push out and you got 6 months from Cabinet.
So that, I think, just to clarify that, the reason why we were pushing out the child lock and the removable batteries was because I knew I was introducing legislation which was part of our coalition agreement to ban disposable vapes this year. So my concern was doing changes before we were doing the total blanket ban of disposable vapes. So that was why I was pushing it out, was because I knew I was bringing legislation to ban disposable vapes this year, and we were doing these tweaks all the way along. I thought if we could push it out, do the blanket ban of disposable vapes rather than kind of messing around with the market repeatedly, changing things, wanted to do the blanket ban, but the support was to make sure that we got this in place this year, and we've got the legislation before the Select Committee now to ban disposables.
So in terms of that 12-month trial, it's unclear to you when that might actually kick in.
And that was the thing, it may not show anything now because of that change, but again, the motivation for it was to present an option in the market which was already in the market.
So you haven't followed up with Philip Morris to say, hey, we actually want these heated tobacco products?
Absolutely not.
I mean, isn't the point though that if you want them to be a tool in the toolkit, isn't it important to know whether they're going to be able to deliver them?
It's not that, and that's the differential. It's not Philip Morris. This is about a product. It's not about the company. It's about a product. And we've seen with vaping, every change that's occurred in the vaping market, the market has pivoted and created products that were compliant. The child locks, the removable batteries, the market's pivoted. The market will pivot again. That's what we're doing. So it's not up to me to talk to manufacturers. It's about the market will pivot if there is a market for it, and if there's a demand for it, then I'm sure the market. But there is still, there will be some product available. I think it's relating to 97%. So there's clearly other products that are still available. So whether they grow their market share, I don't know.
So you can hand on heart say you have no information about whether that product will become available, the other 97% odd?
No, but this is about presenting an option. That's all we were trying to do. And if that product doesn't exist or then that product won't be available. But it was about the fact that at the time we did this, it was available. It is a less harmful product, and I'm sure that there are other products around that would meet the market gap if there is a demand for people who are trying to quit smoking. But there are other products, there are other things that we can do to look at around making sure that there are cessation tools available. And the quit smoking providers have mentioned a few products. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the names of them off the top of my head, but the quit smoking providers have recognised that there are other mist products and things that are available beyond the patches. And the gum.
Given that product though is such a big part of the market in New Zealand, it kind of feels a little bit clumsy for you to have staked so much on putting it out there that this product is really important and it's going to be a useful tool.
But I didn't. I mean, that was the point. I never even announced it. It was there, it was in the budget because it was something. I never made a big thing about it. It was something that existed, and there is something that we could use for those who are trying to quit smoking, and maybe there would be a price differential. This wasn't an announcement, this wasn't a plan, this was a product that existed in the market, and perhaps it might be useful as a quit smoking tool, a cessation tool. But it wasn't, this was just the fact that the product existed in the market, and perhaps it might work as a tool for those that vaping didn't work for. And there are other products that we'll look at, and that was why it was important to meet with quit smoking providers around what other products could be useful for those that really want to quit. And that's the big thing, is there's people that really want to quit, but the stuff that's there isn't working for them. And that was the discussion. And I think the point is, the objective is absolutely the same. We're trying to get people to quit smoking. What we're looking at is what are the things we can do to help them quit.
Do you sort of feel as if you're kind of talking across the health officials and the health groups? I guess there's been a lot of pushback, and do you feel as if you're just kind of talking a different language at the moment?
No, and it's actually been really good in terms of, I just had another meeting this morning, meeting with the frontline workers, meeting with the health providers who are actually delivering this. We've got this latest legislation before the House. We're now dealing with a second tranche of work, which is about the whole regulatory regime, because this piece of legislation's been tweaked and changed so much. We've got really good dialogue about the things that we could do to change this regulation, to make it easier to enforce, to make it clearer, the other things that we can look at.
So quit smoking groups and the like are supportive of you and the measures that you're putting in place?
The quit smoking providers, yeah. Because we've got a common target. We're trying to get people to quit, and they're the ones that are dealing with people who've tried and can't. And we know that under 25s aren't smoking. It's that 34 to 65 age group that are the target market now of smoking. Putting aside, there's lots of work being done in the vaping space, but this is hardcore addicted smokers. And they're practical people like me. They want to find solutions that will help them trigger. And for those that vaping hasn't worked for, and the patches haven't worked, and gum hasn't worked, and so that's what we're looking at, those options.
Do you feel like you got given a bit of a hospital pass with this portfolio?
Well, I was grateful to get the associate health, and this is part of the associate health. I've also got aged care, I've got women's health, I've got a range of things which I'm really passionate about.
Is this the one that keeps you up at night though?
Well, it is frustrating because we've got a common goal, and I suppose what hurts me is my dad died from respiratory illness because of smoking. I hate smoking. I've never smoked in my life. And so I'm absolutely committed to achieving this target. Māori is the highest smoking rates. I'm a Māori. I want people to know that there's hope and you can quit smoking. And that's what I'm committed to doing. So, and that's what I've got this job for, is to fight through and try and come up with those practical solutions.